like to call the August 25th, 2023 call board meeting to order at 1:07 p.m. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Wigginton.
I'll second.
Mr. Finley. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion is approved. 5-0. At this time, I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss or deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action or dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee, or to interview applicants for the position of superintendent, or to discuss or vote to authorize negotiations to purchase, dispose of, or lease property, authorize ordering an appraisal related to acquisition or disposal of real estate, enter into a contract to purchase, dispose of, or lease property subject to approval and subsequent public vote, or to enter into an option to purchase, dispose, lease real estate subject to approval and a subsequent public vote, to consult or meet with legal counsel pertaining to pending or potential litigation, settlements, claims, administrative proceedings, or other judicial actions brought or to be brought by or against school district or an officer or employee, or in which the officer or employee may be directly involved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Laff. Is there any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. We are adjourned to executive session at 1:09. A motion was made by Joe Wigginton, seconded by Sue Finley to come out of executive session at 2:38 p.m. The vote was 5-0. No other action was taken. Do I hear a motion to approve the executive session minutes as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Lau. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Pickens. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Next item is approval of personnel. Do I have a motion to approve the personnel action report as presented?
So moved.
Ms. Gibson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Lau. Is there any discussion? All in favor? All right, before we get to the next item, after about an hour and 45 minutes in executive session, we're going to take about a 10-minute break. We will be back at 2:51. Thank you for your patience, everybody. Next order of business is tentative approval of the 2023 millage rate. Dr. Thomas, can you give us some information concerning the proposed millage?
Yes, sir, I can. Actually, this time I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Financial Officer, Amy Smith. She has a brief presentation regarding our tentative millage rate.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. We're going to share a little information. We received the final signed digest yesterday morning. We had a draft version prior to that, so we've been able to work on it for a couple of days. But what we found in the digest this year, growth in the 2023 gross digest was about $254 million. We had an increase in exemptions of about $9 million. Growth in the net digest, and this is the taxable number, was a growth of about $245 million. So we had significant growth. This was good for us. The value of the mill for 2023 is going to be $2,042,848, which is, I said 14% increase. I think it was 13.63% increase. So basically that is also the growth in the net digest. So gross minus exemptions equals net digest. So that is the number we calculate the taxes off of. So, if you'll go to the next page. One of the required documents that we have to provide is something called the PT 32.1. It is the computation for the rollback rate. So this is what the form looks like. It's not the entire form. Some of it has signature. I just needed to get as much of it on there as I could. If you'll notice, you'll see 2022's digest. Something I've been asked a lot about is reassessment of existing property, what that total came in at this time. It was almost 22 million. To give you a little reference point, last year it was just over 14 million. So we did have significant reassessment in values. And then you'll see our 2023 digest information. If you'll go to the bottom right block where it says rollback millage rate. So in order to keep from having a tax increase by the definition of this report, we would have to roll back beyond 12.762. The recommendation is 12.4, which, as you see in that bottom number in red, if it's a negative, there is no tax increase. Even if we receive more revenue, there is no tax increase, so there would be no need for the 3 additional meetings announcing tax increase. So, do y'all have any questions on that report? Once we do a final approval of a millage, Dr. Thomas has to sign off on behalf of the school system, and we return this document with some other paperwork to the county so they can take it to the Georgia Department of Revenue to finalize the millage.
Amy, how does this millage compare historically? I know you've got
Historically.
25 years worth of data.
I don't have it up here with me. Since, I can tell you real quickly, since 2017, we have decreased each year. We've rolled our millage back further than the rollback rate since 17. I do have a history back to, I think it's in the late 90s, so I can produce that if you'd like to see it. But we're at a lower rate than we have been in quite some time, in years. Let me go on through just a little bit, and I'm going to share some more information. On the next page, like I said, we talked about the rollback rate, what we're recommending. This would be a reduction from 2022 of $0.5 mil. And Ms. Martha, if you'll go to the next slide. This is the 5-year history. This is another reporting requirement we must announce when we will do the final approval. In the paragraph at the top, we must reflect the 5 previous year's tax digest and millage information, and in the current year that we have before you, so you can see the change from 18 until now. So we have had quite a bit of growth. Real and personal property is, of course, usually where we have the most growth, and that trend continued with this year. Any questions on the 5-year history? This will run in our legal organ, the progress, and it will also be posted on our website. The requirement is a minimum of 7 days, so we'll go ahead and get it out to the paper this afternoon or Monday, and they'll run it on the 31st, and so we will more than meet our requirement by doing a final at our regular board meeting in September. Y'all have questions on this? The next slide, I just wanted to show you our millage compared to some of our surrounding counties. Usually someone asks about this, so I went ahead and provided the information. You can see some counties held steady. If you hold your rate and you have reassessments, then you have probably had a tax increase without looking at each individual person. But most everyone has some sort of reassessment each year. So if they have not reduced it some, they more than likely had a tax increase and had to do the 3 additional meetings. As you can see, it's kind of all over the board. Several held the same. No one increased, but some were able to roll back quite a bit, and some have yet to be determined. I'm waiting for a question, and I would really, really like to answer. I will point out, I did a little research because you see some significant rollbacks with a couple of counties in particular.
Dawson.
Dawson and Gilmer. When I took our 5-year history, or our this year's digest and the 5-year history, and compared it to those counties, the biggest difference is the size of the digest. The net difference in our digest versus, say, Gilmer County is over $200 million. Dawson is about $566 million more than ours. And I'm just going to throw this out there because I was really floored about this. Fannin County's is over $800 million more than our digest.
Fannin?
Fannin.
Wow. Wow.
So when you see rollbacks like that, and they had growth off the charts growth compared to us. But I did look at their 5-year history, I looked at their budgets, I really wanted to know why there was such a big difference. Our digest is not growing at the rate theirs is. So, but when you have an $800 million difference, oh, that produces a whole lot of money. So that is why we can't roll ours back that far.
So when you said that's their overall
That's-
net digest, is that much bigger than ours?
Their net digest, so gross minus exemption, so that is their taxable rate.
Gotcha. Okay.
I was floored about Fannin. I know they have incredible growth. I know they have high property values. Was talking to Dan Poole with Progress about that a little while ago. I was just surprised it was as significant as it was. So. But I did want to share that with you. I talked to Dr. Thomas about it. It was just, it's eye-opening when you realize.
River properties, lake properties, retirement properties are
Recreational area.
tremendously
Yeah.
more expensive
Okay. That makes-
than a lot of the things we have here.
Amy, how much bigger did you say Gilmer's was?
200, just one second. I have a whole folder of information on this. It was in excess of 200 million.
And Dawson was 500?
Dawson was, I believe, 566.
Okay.
But like I said, Fannin's was, I believe that Fannin's was about $834 million more in their net digest.
Wow.
It is phenomenal. I've been really surprised. A couple of other facts, just so you know. Fannin County has just over 2,700 students. Gilmer they're bigger than we are now. They have about 100 students more than we do. They're about 4140 on the last count. Dawson runs right there with us. Let me take that back. They're a little bit smaller than we are, so, but just kind of as comparison, so you kind of know, they're similar to us in some ways not. We just don't have, they have a lot of recreational activity in Gilmer and Fannin, and then Dawson, you know, they've got the shopping and, but all their splosts are quite nice. I've been really surprised at how much difference there is between our counties, given the proximity. It's all around us, but we don't have that recreational pull that some of the other counties do, so. Now, do y'all have any questions, any particular questions about anything about the digest? Most categories held very close to the same. Like I said, the biggest thing is what you would expect. It's residential and commercial properties. Residential in particular, you know, that's where most of the growth was. Some of the commercial and industrial were reassessed too, so you saw some increase in those areas also. Do I have any other questions? You've done this a few times. So.
A few.
A few. At this point, if you choose to approve the recommended millage rate today, and hopefully approve the FY24 tentative budget again, the reason we're reapproving that tentative, this is generating more revenue than we expected. The revenue amount that this is going to generate will eliminate the need to hit fund balance for part of our revenue.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So it will give us a little bit extra money, about $116,000. Since we met last, we have 5 new principals. Some issues have come to light. We have about $100,000 in textbooks that have been requested. This will give us the ability to provide those textbooks to those schools. We've discussed it. We've looked at different ways to handle this. But when this came in, we felt like it was important to push those books, their actual textbooks and digital licenses that go along with the textbooks, to push those out to these new principals who had requested them. That was at Pickens Junior and Pickens High. Once we have an approval, we have to put the 5-year history on our website, the tentative budget on our website. We will also announce a second budget hearing, which we'll talk about shortly. Then we run an ad on August 31st in the paper for the 5-year history as required, and the public hearing number 2. And hopefully on September 14th, we will do final approval on the millage and on the FY24 initial budget. Do y'all have any questions about any of the timelines, any documentation?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Chairman Garfield, we do have a recommendation that our millage be rolled back to 12.40. That is a decrease of $0.5 And I'm just grateful for all the work that Amy has done to prepare that information for us.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. Do I have a motion to approve the 2023 tentative millage rate at 12.4, which is $0.5 million less than the previous year's millage rate?
I make that motion.
Everybody wants to do that.
I'll take Mrs. Finley. And second, Mr. Wigginton. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? And the motion passes 5-0. The next item is the second approval of the FY24 tentative budget. Dr. Thomas, would you elaborate on the second approval for us?
Yes, sir, I will. Actually, I'd like for our Chief Financial Officer, Amy Smith, to come back up at the podium. Since we have our tax digest, we do need to look at our budget again. So, Amy, I'll turn back over to you.
As I mentioned before, what we'd like to do at this point, if we have a digest that produces more revenue than we had expected, that increases the number on the revenue. We want to true up that number and reflect to the public, be transparent with them, and put the correct amount in there. The number you see there for local taxes does include the 2.5% collection fee. We are required by DOE regs to include that, even though we know we will not receive it. And then, let's see, we have, so I've plugged in revenue for property tax and then the additional funds, $116,000 in instructional expense for the textbooks. The other item, we have 3 items. The second item is we have received approval for a state safety grant in the amount of $300,000. It's a state grant, so in the revenue section, the second bold italics area is to add the $300,000 in revenue. All of it has to do with maintenance and operations when it has to do with safety, so you'll also see the line item in expenditures go up by $300,000 to match. It is a wash. We get the money, but we have already been approved for this, so a lot of times we won't put it in until we know we're going to be approved for something. But Mr. Wallace, I think, is they've got their quotes together, they're ready to go ahead and pursue those purchases. The third item is Dr. Thomas and Mr. Shea have been working on a replacement of our I guess you call them Promethean boards, whiteboards. This request is to purchase approximately 350 new Promethean boards to replace or give to classrooms. The cost of that is about $1.4 million. It is a SPLOST eligible expense. Our revenue for SPLOST we had anticipated would be quite a bit more than our expenditures at the point that we were doing the budget, so this still has us under the revenue that we're expecting, but we have asked to increase improvement of instruction by $1.4 million to cover the cost of those Promethean boards. That's it.
Dr. Thomas, could you, for Mr. Wallace, somebody tell us a little bit more about those boards?
Sure.
They're not just a white.
Yeah, these are interactive boards. It's not just a whiteboard. These are things that our teachers use frequently to connect to the internet, to enhance learning, for our kids. The Promethean name is kind of the name in that type of interactive board, and so this is just our plan to refresh the ones that we have currently in our schools.
Do I have a motion to approve the FY24 tentative budget as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Cloud. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Finley. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. At this time, I will make a motion to adjourn this meeting. May I have a second?
Second.
Gibson. Is there any discussion? All in favor? We are adjourned at 3:04.